Hello and welcome to the Maths Guide for today, probably a Friday for you in this course. So you may have noticed in the questions that I've been asking you over the last while that I ask you something similar to the same question over and over again. So let's have a look at one of the ways that I do this. We ask the question, John is 30 meters below ground and is traveling upwards at 7 meters per second for 10 seconds. So then the question was going to be, how far above ground is he? And we know that we wrote down we started at minus 30 meters and we went up 7 meters for 10 seconds. So that was minus 30 plus 70. And we know from getting 30 off the bus and 70 on the bus, that results in 40 on the bus. So this is about using integers, which are positive, positive and negative whole numbers are integers. And we use integers to show direction, but that's over the last question. So in this one, I'm going to say we'll be traveling upwards at 7 meters per second for 10 seconds. But many times we might be wanting to know what happens if instead of for 10 seconds, we traveled upwards for 20 seconds. Where would we be? Or if we traveled up for 30 seconds, or for 40 seconds, or for 100 seconds. Okay, so in this question, we know that we started at minus 30 meters, we went up by 7 meters, but we're multiplying this by some value that changes. It could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 30, it could be 40, it could be 100. And when I have a value that changes, this is called a variable. A variable value just means a value that can change over time. Okay, so that's a variable value, 10, 20, 30, 40, or 100. But if I want to write down what the formula is, I don't know what this is going to be. So I usually use some sort of a placeholder to indicate what I'm doing. I multiply by a space. So in primary school, you just put in a box in to say, I start minus a 30 and I add 7 multiplied by some value. Then in secondary school, we would use a letter instead of this box. So we go minus 30 plus 7 multiplied by the letter n. So I'm going to use the letter n for natural number, which as we know is the counting numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay. So here's my formula, minus 30 plus 7 multiplied by some variable value. Then I choose the variable value. I say let n be equal to 10. I put that into my formula and I work out the answer. Okay, so that's what we use a variable for. We use it so that we can write a nice little formula here. We know what the formula is. It's minus 30 plus 7 multiplied by some variable value that I'm calling n. That's the reason I'm calling it n. You could call it any letter you like, to be honest. And then I say let n be equal to 10, and then I work out what the formula is when n is equal to 10. Okay, so a value that changes is a variable value. If I want to write a formula, I use a spacer, a placeholder of some kind, to show that this is going to be a variable value. In primary school, you use the box. In secondary school, we're going to use a letter like n. And as we'll find out, we have a shorthand way of writing that. When we say f7n, that's just a shorthand to mean 7 multiplied by a variable value labeled n. So you can see it's a lot easier to say minus 30 plus 7n instead of saying minus 30 plus 7 times a variable value I'm going to label n. It's just a label. It's a label on this box. Okay, so that's introducing us to variables. You have a question. John is 30 meters below ground, traveling upwards at 7 meters per second for a variable number of seconds. I had a formula to figure out how far above ground he was. The formula was minus 30 plus 7 times by the number of seconds. But if I want to show a variable different, if I want to have a value that changes, a variable value, my formula, instead of writing minus 30 plus 7 times a box, I say minus 30 plus 7 times the letter n. N now represents these numbers. It's just a placeholder where I'm going to put these numbers. And then for each value of n, I can work out the formula is minus 30 plus 7 times 10. Minus 30 plus 70 equals plus 40. And also I want you to know that this is a shorthand way of writing minus 30 plus 7 times some variable value n. So let's have a look at what results we get from that. Our formula is minus 30 plus 7n. So for our first question, we say let n be equal to 10. And then this formula becomes minus 30 plus 7 times 10 equals plus 40. Question 2, let n be equal to 7. Then this formula becomes minus 30 plus 7 times 7, that's 7, equals minus 30 plus 49 is equal to 19. Question 3, let n be equal to 100. Now my formula, this formula, the formula which said minus 30 plus 7n, now becomes minus 30 plus 7 multiplied by 100, which is minus 30 plus 700, which is equal to 670. So now we have a way of writing our formulas to include a value that changes. And the word we use for a value that changes is variable. So that's what a variable is. And I'm going to be giving you some questions, and they're going to be written as a formula. I might ask you in English, but I might just use a formula. And I say the formula, for example, is minus 20 plus 6n. And I'd say let n be equal to 2, 7, 6, and 4. And maybe even a number like minus 1. And then your answer is going to be, when I put 2 in, I get minus 20 plus 6 times 2 is equal to minus 20 plus 12 equals minus 8. So my question 2 gives me an answer minus 6. Then I move on to the next number, 7, and I work out what answer I get for that. Then I move on to 6, work out what I get, 4, work out what I get, and negative 1, and work out what I get. Let's just have a quick look at negative 1. The formula is still going to be minus 20 plus 6 times negative 1. And that's equal to minus 20. You might not have come across this, but let's have a little look at it again. Minus 6 times minus 1 means you're taking away 1 6 times. So for a total, you've taken away 6. And your answer is going to be 26. Okay. We'll look at that a little bit more. So maybe let's not do that just yet. Okay, you're putting questions in to a formula. The formula has the letter n to represent these values, a variable value. You put the value in and you get the answer out. Okay, so I'm going to give you questions where I'm going to give you a formula like this. This formula might mean he's 20 meters underground. He's going up at 6 meters per second for a certain number of seconds. If he's going up for 2 seconds, how far does he get? If he goes up for 7 seconds, how far does he get? If he goes up for 6 seconds, how far does he get? If he goes up for 4 seconds, how far does he get? So the value is changing all the time. And the phrase that we use for a value that changes is variable. And we use the letter n to represent that variable value. And actually, we often just say n is a variable. Okay, so I'm going to give you questions. I'm going to give you a formula with a variable in it. I'm going to ask you to let that variable be equal to like 2, 7, 6, and 4 or other numbers. And you work out what the answer is for each one of those variable values. Okay, all the best.